Hi folks, editing Bruce here. Before we get into this podcast, I just wanted to say two quick things. The first is that if you like the podcast like this and you want to support us, I really would recommend checking us out on Patreon. I'll pop the link on screen and it's in the description. It really does make a big difference and it does help. The second thing is that we talk about competition and awards within this discussion, and the conversation was great. I think there's some really good insights, but Erik sent me a message after the fact with a point that I thought was quite profound. I wanted to put it up front in the podcast, and it was this: the sum of your work is far more important than any individual award. You can win the Slayer Sword, and people might remember that piece, but they might not remember you. And I've been thinking about that message since he sent it to me, and I think it's a good thing for a lot of us that are heavy into the competition scene to bear in mind. Your work is far more important than any individual award. Okay, let's get into it. Hello there and welcome to Get Good Painting. I am Bruce. I am joined as always by Mr. Magnus, and we are joined this week by the one and only Erik Swinson. Erik, how are you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. This is like one of the few days that I'm feeling not ill, not tired, not feeling the like ravages of age. What about you, Max?
Yeah, we quite literally had happy Monday. We're kind of back to normal in the beginning of this week because we just keep on getting sick.
Is it pollen season over there right now?
Well, it is that too. Yeah.
But hey,
we went through that like a couple weeks ago. It was like after Adepticon. It was just like everything was yellow and it was awful.
Yes. Are you allergic?
I don't know if I definitely have like seasonal allergies. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my wife has it bad, so it's coming. It will soon be a full month of her just not sleeping at all because of the induced sniffles and everything. So, well, we'll see.
It's okay. I mean, we're here to talk about the ravages of mortality. This is it now. Yeah. You thought it was painting, but no.
Yeah.
So, well, we do this always in terms of the intro. I would like to think that Erik is a man that needs no introduction, but in case you're not aware, multiple award winner across countless different competitions, prolific streamer on twitch.tv/Erik_Swinson, and it's the same for YouTube and it's the same for Instagram. I appreciate the brand consistency, Erik. Very well done there. But also prolific workshop teacher, and I would say just generally fucking cool dude in the hobby. So it's a real pleasure to have you on. We're going to be talking an awful lot about your experience, your views, everything across the scene, and hopefully just pick apart that brain of yours. But if you have the chance, please do go to one of Erik's workshops. He does have one coming up at the US Open Series for Warhammer Open in Dallas, Texas on May 22nd to 25th. So do check out those slots if there are some available, but always keep your eyes open for an Erik workshop. And with that, let's dive into it. I'll hand over to you, Mags.
Yeah, actually, the workshop thing bleeds perfectly into the first question, and this one is maybe different from a lot of other questions that we have both for you today, but we maybe normally pose because one of the I guess different things with you as an artist is that you are living off it full time and have been for a while. But you are doing it a bit different than maybe most in terms of not doing like Patreon content. So you can't sign up for a Patreon and get whatever feedback or videos or stuff like that. So it's more, you've introduced the Feedback Fridays recently, though the price of that is incredibly low. So it's almost like the best deal you could get, or worse for you. But my question is that how do you kind of like balance a living and a life within I guess work and hobby, because it bleeds together for you, I'm imagining. But kind of do it in a very different way than maybe most content creators do.
Yeah, I think that's kind of two questions where we've got like, okay, like why don't I have a Patreon? My work is, I would say, like 50% doing box arts and commission painting and about 50% teaching. I understand there are some people that make, pretty good money from Patreon, but I consider like the Feedback Fridays and the streaming to basically be like, it's basically an advertising platform for me to be like, look, do you want to do, here's a taste of feedback. If you want to do private coaching, I offer that where you can get like a full hour long, more in-depth session, or maybe you watch one of my videos. Like I did probably my best video I've ever done is the Space Marine heads painting video. And it like made me go, oh, people really are interested in this. Okay, I'm going to teach a hands-on class at Adepticon on specifically that topic. And even though you can watch the video, like people, it's different being there in person and having like hands-on direct feedback of like, okay, you could watch the video, you could follow along, but you don't have me there to say like, okay, we'll fix this, fix that, So for me, it's like, this is like, you get a little taste of like what it's like to be in an actual classroom with me.
Yeah.
Is that like, I guess like, has that been successful? Because your name is so like known throughout the industry, and yet you like, it's kind of bonkers when you look at like your YouTube subs, for example. It's like, oh, this isn't someone that like is the brand name, you're Ninjons, but you are just known across the board. So is it successful or?
I mean, that depends on how you measure success. Like, do I get 100,000 views per video? Am I Squidmar? No, but that's not what I aim to be. And I don't think that's what my audience is either. Right. There's what I would call like, infotainment and like actual educational content. And even though I'll go off on tangents on my stream and, like start talking about movies or whatever, I definitely consider it more educational than like entertainment, where I think you take someone like Swidmar and it's, he's focused on first, like it being entertaining, and then hopefully you get some, educational content out of it.
I guess there is also something to be said about like, your end goal is basically to convert people from there into either an online session or like a ticket for one of your classes, right? So it does matter that you kind of cater to the right people, right? Because it wouldn't matter for you if you got like, let's say 30,000 views or whatever, or 100,000 or 200,000. Well, at some point you can monetize it, but before that threshold, which is really high for you, it wouldn't really matter that much, I guess, right? Because they aren't converting, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's only so many people you could fit into a classroom, but to not get like too much into numbers and everything, but like, I mean, my workshops sell out like typically within an hour of them going live. Like I have a class in Switzerland this year before the World Model Expo. It sold out in like 15 minutes. So I mean but is that a product of YouTube? I don't know, but I know it certainly helps with selling classes, because I've had people come up to me at like Adepticon and tell me, hey, I signed up to your class because I watched your stream or whatever.
Because I watched that Space Marine head video.
Yeah.
Oh, I've watched it multiple times, so.
I guess I want to come on to like inspiration, because you said there like, okay, like half the stuff I do is like box arts and like essentially pieces where you are commissioned to do the piece, but also you have like almost I guess I think of like the candle at Monte Sansevino, but you have something of a mischievous streak when it's like yourself and you're wanting to push out the boat. Like, how do you is like inspiration something that you find hard to come by because you're doing so much box art, or is it a case of when an idea strikes you want to seize it? Like, where does that come from?
I mean, I think I try and do something for myself pretty, like, I think of Monty not as like a business. It's probably one of the few trips that I go on that's like not a business trip, right? Like Adepticon and stuff and Nova, they've become business trips for me. But Monty is like the one show where it's like I can just like hang out and be myself and like enter what I want. So I try and always do something special. And yeah, I do like to rock the boat once in a while. And because I've been on the other side of judging so much, I like to see like how other judges will react when I like,
push.
Yeah.
Do you, has that like changed your perspective? Because obviously you judge so much now as well. Like recently, you've been judged for both MPO and Squidmore online, haven't you?
No, I judged for MPO, but I'm judging SMC and World Model Expo this year. Like I've judged Monte before. I've judged a lot of contests.
Yeah.
Does that like radically change your perspective as a competitor, that you want to like almost like you know what you'd be looking for, so you want to like really throw the boat out?
I don't know if it changes the way that I approach competition, and to be honest, like the way I approach competition has never been to well, I won't say never, but I don't typically paint to try and win. I just paint what I want to paint, and I paint to the best of my ability, and then hopefully it resonates with the judges, right? Only once ever when I went for the Monte Best of Show that like I was like, no, this is like, that's what my goal is, like that's what I'm aiming for, right? And it was like, I'm going to put everything into this piece in hopes that it's like can compete, because you know that like it's the best in the world, right? And everybody's going to be bringing their best, and you have to do something that's going to stand out.
Yes. There's a lot. It feels to me that amongst painters, Monty is on the highest echelon. Is that how you see it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Same as Albert. Just like, yep, that is the peak of the hobby.
Well, same as everybody else who's...
I want to ask about like your, I guess, philosophy or like vision, like what you think underpins your work. Because I think we've asked a lot of painters this now, and it seems to me that people can find it quite difficult to say what their style or approach is. Do you have a sense of who you are as a painter?
No, and I think style is an interesting question, because like style's tough, right? I have an illustration background when I was younger, and I think style is a lot to do with like shape and how you draw things, you know. And when you're painting miniatures, the figure can often really dictate the style. Even if you have like a certain technique, or you're known for like smoothness, or like you take someone like Albert, right? He's known for his technical refinement. I think if you broke my style down somewhere where, and I've painted a lot of different styles, like replicate, you know, as a box art painter, oftentimes I have to replicate illustrations. I think it's more probably the thing I would be like best known for is my lighting and like how I approach that. But I don't know if I would say I have like a particular like style in terms of like, I don't know, maybe people can like look at a figure and just go, that's, you know, Erik painted that. I can definitely do it.
We kind of can.
Yeah. But I think that's more to do with like the technique, right? Is maybe distinct than like what you would typically consider in art, like the way they draw figures or something along those lines, you know, the posing, etc.
Yeah, I guess also in somewhat in model choice. Like I understand that you do box art where you don't specifically choose the model, but you do also paint models that are some that you chose to paint, right? Yeah. And I guess some of it is also in the figures that you choose, right? That style can come from that, whatever you're drawn to something where you can utilize, for example, your specific lighting and the way you render volumes, right? So at some point, I guess that is kind of where the form thing comes in. or at least it can be.
Well, yeah, and if it's a sick orc and it's paid well, it's like there's a pretty high chance Erik paid that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm looking for the cast shadow immediately, and if it's there, it's like, okay, yep, yeah. I knew it.
Well, you can't just say that's me only now. I think that's like kind of become a almost sort of standard practice in miniature painting now.
Yeah, almost.
Do you think,
at the higher levels, it seems to be something that a lot of people have taken on. Yeah, I agree.
Do you think that's almost a bit of your like immediate legacy, Erik? Because like you were known as the cast shadow guy. Like reading through some of your historical interviews, like that seems to be like, okay, you were known for it. Certainly more back then. It is more.
I mean, I certainly didn't invent it. I wasn't the first person to do it on figures, but I think maybe it's I guess you could say I like popularized it or something, you know.
I think so.
My influence on the miniature painting community, that would definitely be one of them. That's like I see a lot of rim lights now. It's like you can point to Alfonso and be like, yeah, Alfonso was painting a lot of rim lights, so you could maybe point to him as like that's why you see those so much, or I don't know. But yeah, I think everybody has their little touch. You could point to, you know, someone like Kirill is like this style of non-metallic, right? Is popularized by him. He's not the first person to paint non-metallic, but maybe his particular approach or style to it has been popularized, right?
Yeah. Dipping into like color, because when I was at your workshop, it was one of the first things you basically started us on was like color theory and explaining that. Obviously, your Art of Erik Swinson book goes a lot of into the color theory, and I'm not asking you to just to explain color theory because that'd be a long podcast, everyone. But how do you make a decision on the colors that you want to like go into your piece? Because I know like recently you've done the piece which is like value over color, which is fascinating study in its own right. But when you're like, okay, well, I'm picking colors or I'm thinking about colors, what is going through your head there? Because I think for a lot of people, when we see it in feedback, it's like, I just don't know what to do with color. What the hell am I doing?
Yeah. So I compare it to like music. Okay. So like there's music theory, right? You can know the notes in a chord that play well together, right? And you can learn the theory and learn to play scales and everything else, and you can practice that. But eventually that just becomes like second nature. And it's like, okay, I'm going to play this note and this note. Oh, and this, you know what? This note goes well with those notes. And it's just like, it just starts to become a thing. And then I compare it to like jazz music, where it's like when you start to learn to play the wrong notes with those is like where you can really start to play with color. Like when it starts to get really interesting, right? So it's like you learn these foundational skills, and at the beginning you have to think about it, right? It becomes a conscious thing. And then as you become more practiced with it, it just becomes like automatic, right?
Is it then innate to you now that you just have a feel?
Yeah, I would say so. It's just I can like just grab a color and be like, I know this is going to work with these because I have that feeling for it at this point.
Yeah, because I actually sometimes wonder it, because I've seen some of your Feedback Fridays, right? And it seems almost like, I don't know, maybe you have glanced over them, but it feels almost sometimes like you dip into the channel as you boot it up and like, okay, so the first one is from this guy, put it in, and then it's like, okay, so now you start thinking. It's not like you sat there and prepared a lot of things. So it becomes almost like I guess the most raw of your feedback, right?
Yeah, I actually kind of prefer it that way, and that is how I do it. I try not to like overanalyze them. I might glance at the channel just to see how many people have posted things, but I don't like really look at them, at the pieces, because I want everyone to go through my thought process with me. I try and like think out loud so that beyond just like, here's what to do, like you get the why should you do this, right? Yeah. It's one thing I can just draw over and be like, do these things, fix it. right?
Yeah.
It's another to be like, here's why I'm doing these things and why you should make these changes.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes it even more impressive, because sometimes you will actually go specifically color and say, okay, so I'm looking at this, but maybe, okay, so this is definitely not working for me because you have all this coldness, now you have a patch of warm, or whatever it is, right? And you kind of change something slightly, paint over it, and you can see live that things start coming together. Maybe not like drastically different or whatever. And it's still, of course, a choice, but it is because you can kind of grab things on the go, I guess, right?
One of the things that I think I've noticed in those Feedback Fridays, and to be honest, noticed it a little bit at the workshop, is when you look at a piece, it seems that you have an innate understanding of the level that person is at. You don't, you've given feedback to Slayer Sword Winners. You understand the skill width that exists across this hobby. What are the tells you're looking for to make those decisions? Or is it like much like with the color theory? It's like you just kind of have an intrinsic understanding now.
I think typically like brushwork, volume interpretation are like two of the pretty obvious ones. Like those are two of the obvious tells. It's kind of like a chess player. Like the chess player can, like, just based on the moves someone makes, they can kind of tell what someone's level is at chess, right? Yeah. Like you kind of just see it, right? And based on that, then you can like start to give kind of individualized feedback over, like, you know what? Okay, I could like overcomplicate this and like really go into crazy detail over how much to fix all these things, but a lot of times it's like finding that one thing that maybe you see across, especially if you work with someone like multiple times, you might be like, you know what, this is the hurdle that they need, and like, all right, let's work on this specific thing. So oftentimes I might not correct everything, and in the Feedback Fridays I don't have time to correct everything. I want to try and get through like multiple people, so I'll typically try and pick out like that one thing that I think will push them the furthest in their painting, right?
Yeah, I quite like that, actually. Looking for something where the effort put in also gives the most like output, right? It doesn't matter if you could go and zoom in and say, okay, so clean up those eyes, and it's like, yeah, okay, sure, but is like spending hours on that or whatever. If you were better off in, okay, so you need to push the value because, or whatever it is, like, so looking for who can kind of benefit the most with or what they can benefit the most from, right?
Yeah.
I guess that's also one of the things that you would be looking for, right? When you assess a level, like the complexity of whatever is most beneficial. Like if you're starting low, because some things they definitely build on top of others. So if you're correcting, I don't know, something really technical, it points towards someone with a higher level, right? Whereas...
Well, yeah, but that's the interesting thing. And I've noticed this actually a lot in the last recent years. You have sort of two camps of like painting, right? Mm-hmm. You've got the people that like you started with the Golden Demon years ago and they have like an extremely technical brush control level, but maybe they don't understand more of like the artistic theory behind it, right? And then you have people that got into it and they've been watching or taking classes, you know, and they've learned all this theory, but they haven't developed the technical side. And you can see the difference in the two, where it's like you look at someone's work that has like extreme precision, but they're making these weird decisions, right? Whether it's color theory or lighting or whatever, right? But they can paint the perfect, like detailed freehand, right? Like super precise, right? And then you switch to the other side where it's like, man, some of the color decisions they're making, the volume interpretation is really good, right? Their value control is great, but they just don't have like the brush control to execute on some of the like the concepts that are in their head, Right? It's like I see the two branching paths, and I think it has something to do with like when people got into it and maybe what their focus was when they got into it.
I agree, and also who they are as a person, I think, because this is actually something we've talked about a fair bit through. We have weekly hangouts in the community, and I definitely personally feel like there are these two camps where you can be like either someone who's painting war dolls, right, or someone who is an artist, and the medium is, well, these 3D war dolls, right? So, and it's not like you can have overlap and you can learn from both camps, of course. But I think it kind of looks like, at least, that people are almost innately in a camp, one or the other. And then you kind of bridge back and forth. I mean, I guess some people stand in the middle, but most don't. They are.
Yeah.
Kind of
I think it's
either or.
what their focus was at the beginning, right?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, that's a good point.
I think as well, there's a lot of decisions out of your control when you enter the hobby. Like, I didn't enter it that long ago, and it's like, okay, well, what's the first TikTok video you happen to see? What does that emphasize? What's the first, like, when you go search how to paint X, what's the first YouTube person that you hear from? Because, and even like within that person, what video are you watching, and therefore what are you gripping onto? Because we hear like constantly like, oh, well, the standard is improving, it's always getting better. And a largest part of that is like building on the shoulders of giants, of like all that accumulated knowledge and taking it forward, and like still understanding that this is a new hobby in many ways compared to like the deep breadth of artistic history that lies behind us. And so it does seem that you have a modern generation is like, hey, I just want to paint stuff. And then, your older golden demon heads are like, no, it's Warhammer or it's nothing. And it has to be that style in that way. My guess is it'd be better to have someone that has all that theory and then just has brush control to work on. But is there actually a big difference in terms of teaching and helping them improve?
I do find like when you get, it's funny because often when I'm teaching a workshop, I can pick out the guys that are like heavy metal style painters, right? I can typically pick them out because I really throw them out of their comfort zone pretty fast. And you can typically pick those people out, and it's like, I actually think it can be, it's sort of like the expression, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks, right? I sometimes think it can be harder to get them to unlearn the things that they've learned than it is to like teach someone who's maybe like, okay, you know what, you need to paint thinner lines. Here's how you execute painting thinner lines, right? That's probably easier to teach.
And I guess there's also some like artistic knowledge is a tough one, right? It's not something you can learn it, right? You can become a better artist, of course, or more creative. So, but I think creativity is like one is a I guess almost like a persistence thing, where if you lift the same thing over and over, you get strong. If you run this track over and over, you get fast. If you paint this line thinner and thinner, it gets perfect. But having ideas and visions and being creative, because you're basically creating something out of nothing, right? So the track is not that given. I think that is probably a stronger suit if you were trying to like push as far as possible. I'm guessing.
We've been talking a lot in our community about plateaus. That has come up like time and like the discomfort that is inherent in those plateaus. Like, I know this isn't right. I feel like garbage. Like, it seems to me that almost
they happen to everyone. They happen to me too.
Well, so that was going to be my question. Like, you always come across as like cool, and like all of these like answers are on the fingertips, and I've never struggled with them. Like, how have you addressed plateaus in the past? Like, how have you pushed through them? What's the techniques been that you've employed?
I think one of the best ways to push through that, and I try not to think about like too much like, oh, I'm not improving. I just paint, right? And then I feel like you are always improving. Okay. It's just sometimes it's like you have that one piece where it's really visible, right? And it's like the culmination of the things you've learned over the last few, and they all sort of show on that one figure. So you'll often see like what I would call like a level up piece. Like someone will paint something that it's like, there's like this visible jump in skill at that one, right? And maybe it's like these like epiphany moments, right, that you have where like everything that you've been learning on the past few pieces just sort of clicks and comes together. But like probably the best way to get over that is to just get out of your comfort zone more often, right? Like you know, paint. If all I did was paint Space Marines, all I'd learn how to do is paint a pretty good Space Marine, right? You have to try different things in order to improve. You can't improve without failure, right?
No.
I think embracing discomfort is this thing that people just are terrified of, because it feels like
sure.
Yeah, you hear it so many times, like, but I've got good at this, and if I do this, then I won't be good anymore.
The I'm saving this model until I'm comfortable, like, to paint it thing drives me crazy. Like, so it's just going to sit in your closet forever. Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, just paint it. Right.
And like, it's dear friend, I'll enter a competition when I'm good enough. So what do you mean? Like, you can just paint something and it can just be you. And there's an inherent talking down of our work that I think is like something of an epidemic across this hobby. Sometimes it's like, oh yeah, show me your piece, and then they show it you, and then the first thing they say is, oh, I hate X, Y, and Z.
Well, I think that comes from them being like intimately familiar with it. People do tend to see the things that are wrong with their work that they dislike more than the things they did well, right?
I think it's also to cushion. I think more often than not, that is also a case where you would rather be the one to say, I know this is not perfect, or I know it won't probably slay all the others, and or whatever. Because if you said it, it doesn't hurt as much as if someone else says, you know what, that's probably not going to do too well. It's just, I mean, I
wouldn't. I definitely wouldn't say that to people.
I mean, if someone was asking you for feedback and saying, so okay, I'm going to submit this to X competition. I plan on taking gold or silver or whatever, because I have a lot of these messages.
Well, that's a different. I would say the thing I would say to them is try and don't build yourself up with expectations, right?
Exactly,
like,
right.
Even me entering Golden Demon, I would not have any expectations of getting like a trophy or whatever.
No, but it's true for every competition, really. It's true for every, like, all painting, because this subjectivity, right? So instead of like being, okay, so I need to reach this goal, how do I do it? I will do good with this one. I mean, you said it yourself. You really only had one specific piece where you were like dead set on this has to do very well, because you just cannot know, right? So yeah, sometimes I have had people where I needed to say to them, you know what? I hope you win it all, but be careful, because judges are fickle and they might not agree, right?
Yeah, I like that's how you're blaming the judges there. You know, I don't think it's good enough. It's like, no, those damn Erik's a fickle bastard. So if you don't go with you, it's his fault.
I'll shoulder the blame. It's fine.
Even if you're not judging, we'll just blame you anyway. I guess, like, on Plateaus and this idea of improvement, we have to get to feedback, and like obviously with Feedback Fridays, it's this quick, 5 to 10 minutes on each piece. You're not going in depth, but I think for a lot of people, feedback and critique is something that they are afraid of. Like, it's why we did the thing on our YouTube where Mags and I sit down for a feedback session, because they're not necessarily broadcast often. So people are like, well, what's it like? Does my work just get torn apart for an hour, or etc.? Like, no, it isn't that. It's really useful and all these things. But like, I guess I'm going to do the classic, and I have two questions here. Like, number one, like, how and when do you seek feedback on your own work from your peers? Because I imagine that must get trickier as you get to the top, higher in the pyramid of painters. But I guess with that, like, what advice would you give to people, certainly more intermediate painters, who need to have critique and use it constructively? What would you say to them in order to help them, like, move through that fear?
No, I think feedback is super important. Like, absolutely. It's one of the most important things. And finding the people you trust to give you quality feedback. I was actually having this discussion recently in my Discord. I think some people are just really bad at giving feedback, and they think the thing they need to tell you is like I don't like this or I like that. Like, no, I don't. When I look at a piece, I try and get into and when I'm giving feedback, I try and get into the intention of the artist, or when I'm judging, right? And I try and put myself in their position and like, okay, here's the things they did well. Here's what I think they were trying to do. And maybe they fell short on certain things. So I try and encourage like, okay, this is working well, but maybe we can do this instead. Right. Now, there are some times when you give feedback and you're like, this is a technical error. Right. But those things are, you know, when you're dealing with someone painting non-metallic and you're like, yeah, these reflections don't work together. Like, they don't make sense. Right. This is a technical flaw. Right. But there's a difference when you're giving feedback on like a little more subjective or stylistic things. But I think it is important to, like, I have a small group of people that I trust to give me feedback that I can go to and be like, hey, what do you think about this? And oftentimes it's not like super in-depth stuff, but I've gotten my fair share of feedback before. Like when I was starting, I was part of Alfonso Geraldo's like coaching thing on his when on his Patreon, right? So I did that for a while, and he helped show me things, and often it would be like similar feedback, right? I would give him something, he would say something, and then he would give me similar feedback on the next thing, and I'm like, okay, so I'm getting the same feedback on more than one figure, right? Yeah. This is something I need to like fix in my painting in general, right? So yeah, I think it's important to take feedback and learn to filter feedback. I don't think the shotgun approach to feedback is very good either, where you're like asking everyone for feedback, like finding the people that you want to specifically to get feedback from, right, can often probably be more helpful and typically a little more clear on like, okay, here are the things that like you need to work on. Right. Actionable feedback is super important. Yes. Subjective feedback is nothing, right? It's like, I don't like the bass. Okay, cool. I'll just throw it in the bin then, shall I? Yeah, like okay, but like actionable feedback is like, I don't think the bass works for these reasons. Here, like with this figure, here's what you could consider to make it work better, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, maybe the composition doesn't work, or the colors aren't working with the figure, or stylistically the painting of the figure and the base don't match, right? Like those are all things like that are actionable. Yeah. As opposed to just like, well, thanks for your opinion. You know, that's not feedback.
Yeah. What do you think of this? I hate Space Marines. Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. Thanks. Cool.
Yeah. Is there like I guess this is where these feedback sessions where you get an hour of basically tuition or feedback on a project or on a topic are good, because you get to have interaction, right? Sending in a photo to you, for example, for Feedback Fridays, I realized that it's going to be short and it's going to be something that you think can be improved, of course, but you will have to guess a bit about what's going on here, whereas an hour you can actually kind of like, see what's going on. You can ask, you can have a bit of discussion around, okay, so I feel like you thought this, is it true? Oh no, actually I was, okay, gotcha. So you actually get something actionable, right?
a lot of times in my feedback and in my coaching, I'm asking a lot of questions. Yeah. It's like, what was your intention here? What were you trying to do? Right. Like, even just like, I mean, it's like a teacher, right? Like any teacher in school, they tend to ask questions from the students a lot to like try and get into what they were thinking, right? So when you're coaching and you're like giving feedback, like, okay, what was the intention behind this? What are you trying to achieve? Okay, now I understand what you're trying to achieve. Here's maybe how you could make it more successful, right?
Yeah.
I think as well, it's a good tool that you can use as someone receiving feedback. Because I guess from my own experience, I was asked those questions a lot initially, like, oh, what were you thinking when you did X? And the honest answer early on was, I was not thinking. I just did that thing.
Yeah. Still, for me,
I just did the thing.
Yeah. You mean it was? You mean I have to think about this? Like, no.
No.
And then you begin to become, I guess, more of a conscientious person with the brush, and it's like, oh, actually, well, I was trying to do this, and maybe I completely fucked it up, but at least I was trying to do something.
This is interesting because this kind of loops back to the Plateaus thing. And I think like learning to train your eye is also often like one of those plateaus that you can hit where it's like you can only paint as good as you can observe, right?
Yeah.
Like if you don't see what's wrong with it, right? Or you don't see what makes this piece work better than your piece or whatever, if you can't see the difference, then you can't paint to make that improvement. Right. So you have to train your observational skills just as much as like training your actual technical skills.
Yeah, this is why I think this Feedback Fridays is so good, is because it's free for everyone else to watch afterwards, right? And I mean, I really enjoyed, for example, from Crimson Brush, that they had a judging team and then they recorded. And you could see afterwards, what were they talking about? Not only where did pieces place, because that's not as interesting as it is to kind of hear what were they looking for? Why did they like this one a bit better than that one, right? Why did they think it was better? And the same with your Feedback Fridays. You get to see and hear your thoughts. And for some things that if you were yourself maybe presented with the photo, you would be thinking, I don't even know where to start, right? So it is valuable for everyone, not only, of course, mainly for the one getting the feedback, but it's very valuable for everyone, I think. So we encourage everyone to see it, everyone we get to touch
it's
on.
It's required viewing. Well, I think I comment on every single goddamn video at this point, but it is like, even if it's something that you have on in the background while you're painting, like the amount of times that you've said something and I'll be doing that mistake there and then I'm like, oh fuck.
Yeah, I had the nicest compliment at Golden Demon. The guy who won gold, I'm sorry I forgot his name, but he won gold with the wolves, the three goblins riding the wolves.
Oh, yeah.
He came up to me afterwards and he was like, I was watching your Feedback Friday, and though I haven't submitted any photos, something you said on someone else's piece made me go like, oh, I didn't think about this on mine. I need to fix this, right?
Yeah, that's super nice.
That was George Shapter for all interested. Get on Golden Demon Compendium. Have a look at that piece. It's really cool. I want to underscore like one thing that the two of you have been talking about, because I do think it's so critical, and like I feel a little bit party to being the villain here, because like we have a Discord where it's like open feedback, and I know you have the same thing in your Discord, Erik, but it's like not necessarily something that I'd recommend to people. You need relationships with people that are going to feedback on your work, because like, okay, maybe when you're first starting and there's a load of technical errors that, you can benefit from hearing, even then it can be brutal to get a shotgun of people all saying that, oh yeah, this reflection doesn't work. But I think there was a thing that clicked for me, and it's in the video that we put online in terms of that feedback session where, Mags, you were like, okay, I've seen enough of your work enough times to know that this keeps coming up. You need to fix it. It comes to the point you were saying, Erik, like once, like what Banshee did for you, once you've seen it or heard that enough times, you know to almost factor it into painting consciously. So you're not just like, oh, right, I'm coming to NMM, so I know now I have to add interest, because I don't. And that's a weakness. You have to like bed those in. And so it is something like, do think conscientiously about seeking that feedback, I think is so critical in terms of like improving as a painter. Because I think for a lot of people, it's what they really want to do. Like, some people, it's like, okay, well, I want to win everything. Well, you can't win everything without improving, unfortunately. Do you feel pressure, Erik? You said there, like, I'm not necessarily entering to win stuff. Like, I want stuff like that excites me or interests me or like is a reflection of my work. But because you are known, like, do you feel an element of pressure?
No, I don't really feel like any sense of pressure from the community or whatever to win awards or anything. I literally just do it because I enjoy competition because it pushes me. I enjoy some friendly competition with friends. Like if a friend of mine is like, I'm going to enter X, and I'm like, okay, let's do this, you know? Like,
I should never tell you what I'm entering.
No, what they're entering, even if they are, just that they are entering, right? Okay, all right, so you're going to, because I know that they're going to work really hard, right? So that means that I have to work really hard.
Yeah.
So it can be like a friendly game of like, let's see how far we can push each other. Right.
Yeah.
As opposed to like feeling any sort of pressure to like get a specific award or something. Like, no, I don't, that doesn't really matter to me.
And it never did, even when, I mean, you were not always the brand you are today, right? At some point you weren't doing this full time, I imagine, right? So maybe it mattered more, or, well, it never did for you.
I've said I've been nervous once in my entire time being at an awards ceremony, and it's when they didn't call me for Best of Fantasy at Monte. So they always announce Best of Fantasy, Best of Historical, and then they, like, if you're not Best of Fantasy, that means that you might be Best of Show, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the only time I've ever been nervous. And they also play like these, like, hey, we're inducting these people into Grand Maestro and these like other videos in between. So there's like this long wait, like, and you're like, and that's the only time I've ever like really been nervous in an award show, because like I said, it's just, I just did do the best that I can. And if I get an award, that's cool. If not, like, I did the best I could. Right. Yeah. And I know that's easy for me to say because I've done well at competitions, but like, really, it's like, I've gotten silvers before, guys. Like, I've gotten bronzes. Like, oh my God, right?
Yeah.
Fuck.
I do quite like that, because it can be true still, right? And I guess it can be even true to the point that maybe you were freer in your painting always because of that, right? So when you don't feel the pressure, you can bring something that you tried something different on, or that you were happy with for other reasons, right? Not because you want to beat the competition or whatever is going on.
I feel the pressure before the show, not at the show. The pressure is the lead up, like, get this done, do the best you can, right? Yeah. It's never at the show, because at that point you've done it. If you truly believe like you've done everything you can, then whatever happens.
Yeah, this is actually quite literally exactly how I feel, because I come from other competition, like high level competition before. It was different because you were there to actually compete on the day, right?
Yeah,
but here, you're not
like running, right? Like,
exactly.
Like, that's it. The second you put that model in the cabinet, like, your job's done. You've done. Yeah. Now you just wait.
Yeah.
Oh, I get the relief when the model's done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when it's in the cabinet, it's over. Yeah, it's true.
Bloody aliens. How do you then, like, you mentioned that like it's the pressure in the painting. You know, it's essentially almost, I guess, keeping yourself honest that you're trying your absolute hardest. Is that how you maintain like inspiration and passion? Because I don't know that for me.
It's not necessarily hardest. It's the like passion to learn, to improve, to like know what you don't know, right? That's where it really is for me. It's like I'm always looking to do better, and no matter what it is. Recently I painted that the Clue bust by Mark from Mark's. And I did like the whole jacket, and it took forever. And it's like, that was literally like, I don't think it was like a really test of my technical skill. I knew I could achieve the painted look, right? It was more a test of my patience to see if I could like commit to actually doing it, right? Doing it to the same level on the whole jacket, right? Not like skipping out on certain parts, but like really just like, okay, this is going to take a long time, and you just have to like do it, right?
Suffer through it.
It just reminded me of those people that get on like 12-hour flights and just raw dog it and just like not just stare at the map. I'm like, I can't judge. I watched the whole YouTube video. I'm like, yeah, you pay more of these thin lines. I'm engaged in this.
Yeah, Bruce, you didn't even paint the lines, huh? You just watched Erik paint all the lines. That's much worse.
That's all I want to do.
Imagine committing to that, huh?
What excites you in the space at the moment, Erik? Like maybe aside from your own work, like what are you looking at? It's like, this is fucking cool. Like this is getting my creativity whirring.
You know, that's a good question. Like, I'm really curious. Like, what I think you asked Albert about this. Maybe it's like, have we reached like a level? And no, I don't think we have. But it's like, what's going to be next? Like, what is that next level? Like, what can we do better? I think, and I look outside the hobby a lot, right? I tend to look a lot at like traditional painting and like canvas painting, illustration, and like what are the things that they're doing that we can do better, because no matter how good the painters are like on 3D on our miniatures, like there's 2D illustrators that are way better than us.
Almost infinitely. That is exciting. That's also what we're kind of, because we're talking about it a bit. Like, what is the next thing? So many things seem to have kind of been mastered and not by everyone and not on the same pieces necessarily, but someone has done like the thing, and more often than not, a lot of people have done the thing. If it's forced perspective or if it's some kind of a rendering of light or if it's texturing or whatever it is. So lots of things have happened, and that's why we also asked Albert and you too. What do you think the next thing is? What do you think? Because it's so hard
if I knew what the next thing was, I would be doing it, wouldn't I?
Yeah, you would. Yeah, and you wouldn't even gatekeep it because you would put it straight on YouTube.
Well, I think there's also that interesting question of like what could constitute the next thing, because there's an argument of like, well, a lot of people looking at like sculpture and pushing essentially the 3D pieces that they are creating. So like when we had Raph on, obviously his Golden Demon winning piece was like created entirely in ZBrush, and there is the thing that is stuck in my head so much from that conversation is I know when I'm sculpting it what it means for my paint, which feels like a level up, but I could also imagine the argument of, well, that ain't painting. So if we're talking about like what the next thing in painting is, but then it comes to like, what is the hobby?
Yeah. I wish I knew the answer, because then I'd be, like I said, I'd be doing it myself, right? But
do you?
Do
you do much sculpture yourself, Larry?
I would like to try. That's a time thing, right? It's like I'm quite big. I work a lot. I paint a lot. I would like to try. I do some, like, I can get by on like sculpting rocks and stuff, right? I can do minor conversions and things, but I don't know how to like sculpt a face. I don't know the tools. And when I have tried like sculpting with you know, like little tiny tools, I get kind of frustrated because I'm not familiar with the like actual material. I know what I want it to look like, but like I go to put putty on and then I scrape it off and I'm like,
getting out of the comfort zone. I like it.
Yeah.
I guess that's actually a good, because we for us, oftentimes it's bases, right? We talk about it over and over and over. And it seems like these things that are kind of, it's so hard to go back. Like, and that's back to the whole out of comfort zone. It's so hard to feel like, okay, I reached this level in painting, whatever that is. And now you're basically like, okay, so now I need to do better bases, for example, or I need to sculpt something. And it feels like you're going straight back to tricycle. Yeah. And you were right. And it can be super frustrating because it takes a lot of time and effort and all of that, right?
I think you also have probably learned a lot of things, so maybe those new skills can develop faster.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I mean, I look at some of the sculptors who get into painting, right? Like you take someone like Hugo Briones, who is a incredible sculptor, and then he wins Best of Show with a figure that he painted at Monte last year, and you're like, when did you get so good at painting?
You bastard.
Yeah, someone like Raf, right? Who is a 3D artist, and well, now he's a painter too.
The skills definitely translate.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
The eye, it's this thing of like you learn to train your eye. The eye, now it's just, okay, can your hands catch up to your eye?
Yeah.
And it comes to something you're saying about like 2D illustration as well, because we have enough people in the community that are like, this is a piece I just drew, or I'm practicing oil painting on canvas, and no one ever kind of comes out of that saying, and it didn't improve my mini painting at all. It often helps massively because you understand volumes in a new way, or color selection, or value separation, and things like that. I'm mindful of time as we kind of like draw to the end of this. I guess in the history of your work, Erik, is there a piece that you can point to as like, okay, well, this changed my perspective, or this, like, I guess I would call them like a fork in the road piece where you saw either a way that your style evolved, or you made a decision that would kind of impact the rest of your work?
You know, this is one that I don't think like many people would think back to. But I did, it was an academic bust. I went to Crystal Brush, the last one. I painted it. It looks like Wolverine, right? It's this Hera academic bust. He's got like bullet holes in his chest. And there are some like telltale things of like, okay, you can see like where my style went to from that. One, I was looking at like how Mark had done like multiple copies of that bust at that point. And I really was like looking at his work going like, okay, why did he do it this way? Like specifically, why did he make these decisions? But then I also started to introduce like some of my like cast shadows and other things into that bust. So I think that was like, yeah, it's not the most impressive figure ever, but it like, I think it's one of those pieces that's like, it sort of changed the way I thought about miniatures, right? And there was probably a few of those, but you know, I could say something like, "Oh, the Bane, the Monty piece," but really, that's like, that was just the culmination of things I had learned. It didn't really change the way I thought about painting. It's just like that's just all everything kind of coming together.
Yeah, it's an accumulation of the experience and the work that you've put in. But no, it's those earlier pieces. We're like, no, I decided to do this, and that's something that I would then lead into for the years that followed.
Tim, I'm actually quite impressed that you can kind of point to that piece, like painted so much and like, but this one specifically, because we can kind of forget.
Well, I remember it was like something that I looked at on Mark's figure and it was this clicked, right? It's like, you know what? I see why he's rendering volumes that way or whatever. And then it's like, then that applies to to everything else, you know. And there's probably a couple pieces like that. Like there's probably one specific piece where I've like kind of changed my approach to how I paint metallics or something else, but
Sure.
I'm going to close with a question that we ask everyone. Certainly everyone at the high level, which is like, obviously you coach, you do a lot of this. Mm-hmm. What are the commonalities? What are the things that you keep coming back to, which seems to be like a unifier across everyone on that intermediate phase? I think for Albert, it was color selection. For Phoenix, it was like value relativity. We've had a whole host of them. Do you find something that you keep coming back to?
I think there's a few, right? Because I don't think it's one thing. Like we were talking earlier, where it's like you see these two paths of painters. Like certain people have like clearly distinct problems with this thing, or others have problems with this thing. The one I've been going on about recently, and this is why I did that like value thing where I painted the whole figure in black and white, is because I keep seeing this now where it's like people can select colors, but then when you take the color out of the equation, like the values aren't working together, right? So like when you look at the figure at a distance, everything sort of just becomes muddy in the same value.
Yeah.
So that's one I've been noticing quite a bit recently. Yeah, I mean, even like another one is the consistency thing, right? It's like I really hit people hard on this at Nova a couple of years ago, where it's like, guys, you're just kind of being lazy, right? It's like, I know you can do it, but like you just didn't paint the back of the figure, like, right? And that's like the like commitment to like finishing a project, right?
Yeah.
I guess I want to ask a quick follow on this, which is like, I guess something that I've noticed a little bit as a commonality in Feedback Fridays is you'll often like frame a question such like, oh, what is this person doing? Or like, I mean, it happened with the rim light rant, as I shall call it. Like, what is happening here? Like, do you think people don't think enough about narrative and storytelling when it's like, oh, I'm here to slap paint on a mini, not what is this person doing?
Yeah, I mean, that's when my workshop is all about ambience, right? Like, ambience and then color theory leads into that ambience. But I don't think people like imagine their figure in a setting or anything. They just put color down and it's like, okay, well, there's a light source and the light source is coming from this way, but what is the light source? Like, is it the sun? Is it just a glowing orb in like?
It's a big studio light. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. They got this nice soft studio light, right?
With like a perfect like psych background.
I say in my workshop, like, do not paint your figures like they exist in the white room in the Matrix.
Yes.
Like they're just hanging out in the white void. Like, I always, no matter what, I try and like pick a setting for my figures, whether it's a bust or anything, right?
Yeah. And I think like that comes through. And I think the thing that I'm beginning to learn more is that when you actually ask yourself those questions, it makes the basing a lot easier because you suddenly have all the answers that you were maybe, what am I putting this person on? Well, you already know the environment. You already know what they're doing. Why can't you reflect that in the piece, which is... Yeah. I think that's the kind of wonderful thing about this hobby is there's always something to learn, no matter what we talk to people at all levels. It's like, hey, I'm learning about this. I'm excited about this. It's something I want to keep pushing. We have come to time. Erik, if people want to come to the workshop, obviously we mentioned the Warhammer US Open. Are you coming to Europe anytime soon? Where can people find you next?
I am. I'm going to be in Europe for the World Model Expo. I will have another trip later in the year around SMC in Monte. Currently planning I'm in the planning stages, but it sounds like probably Germany and Italy. Might be coming to the UK soon, so London, but... But yeah, I'm around. The best thing to do is you can you join the Discord and I tend to post stuff there, or you can follow me on I actually, Instagram is probably not the best place to find out about like workshops, because typically by the time like I post a story, they're
gone. Yeah,
they're sold out.
So
take 15 minutes.
Take that then as your cue. If you aren't already, get yourself to twitch.tv/Erik Swinson, because I know the link to the Discord is on that channel, and of course the YouTube/Erik Swinson. And if you're not watching Feedback Friday, you have to.
You should.
If you're interested in this hobby, you have to. It's required viewing. I will say that till I'm blue in my face. But until then, Erik, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it and really appreciate your perspectives. Until next time, though, everyone, thank you for listening, and paint something beautiful.